I call this meeting of the Davenport Community School District Board of Directors to order. Director Robertson, would you read our vision statement, please?
President Johansson, I don't think I can. So would you have someone out, please?
All right. Director Kluhl, would you please read our vision statement?
Sure. On behalf of Director Robertson, I'll read the statement tonight. Our vision statement is education that challenges conventional thinking, prepares all students to compete in a global society, and inspires our students, parents, staff, and community to answer the question, what if?
Thank you. Communications. October 2nd, 4 p.m. policy meeting, ASC Executive Boardroom. October 3rd, 4 p.m. legislative advocacy meeting, ASC Executive Boardroom. October 7th, 5:30 p.m. Committee of the Whole meeting, ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. October 14th, 7 p.m. regular meeting, ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. October 21st, 5 p.m. Board Workshop on Goals and Objectives, ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. October 28th, 7 p.m. regular meeting, ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. Next is open forum for community input, and we have two open forum requests. Open forum is a time for members of the community to give input at a board meeting regarding school district issues or concerns. Individuals who want to speak should fill out an open forum request and give it to the board secretary prior to open forum. The board will not act on any issue presented during open forum if it was not published as an agenda item. The Iowa Open Meetings Law prohibits action on any issue that is not on the agenda. The president will set the amount of time allowed for individuals to speak during open forum. The board asks that no charges or complaints be made against individual employees of the district or community during open forum. Remarks that reflect negatively on the character or motives of any person will be called out of order. I just received a third request. And, excuse me? I received a fourth request. And our practice is to allow 2 minutes for open forum. And we have, who's got the bell tonight? I want the bell turned off. And I'll use my own little clock here if somebody gets too long-winded, but I'm going to allow 5 minutes each. If you want to take up to 5 minutes, those of you that are coming up to the microphone, feel free to take that. First is Linda Dothard.
Somebody asked how I got to be first. I don't know. I guess it's called favor. Good evening, and it's a pleasure to address you. I came tonight for my friend, my colleague, the person I love and admire, Mr. Larry Roberson, who has spent 11 years in your school district doing a wonderful job. And even though you sit on the school board and sometimes you don't get thanks for what you do, I'm here to say, as a board member from Rock Island, thank you for all you've done in Davenport, and I'm sure the community thanks you. But I would be remiss if I didn't stand here today and acknowledge Larry in public. He knows how I feel about him in private, but I just needed to let your board president and all of your board know how much I appreciate what he has done. He has inspired me. He and I have talked, and we've supported each other over the years, and we will continue to do that. and you will be losing a great person from this board in the name of Mr. Larry Roberson. So tonight we salute him, and I say to him, I love you, I appreciate you, and thank you so very much for all you've done for Davenport schools.
Thank you, Linda. Next is Deborah Stevenson. And I don't know if I mentioned in my opening remarks, but please state your name and address for the record.
Deborah Stevenson, P.O. Box 2, East Moline, Illinois, 61244. I am a 22-year district employee, and Linda, you took everything I was going to say, so now I need to come up with something else. But I just want to say to Larry, you said something in the diversity workshop last week that really didn't sit well with me. And what you said is you just really didn't feel like you had done a good job of closing the achievement gap. And I am here to tell you and the board, and this is nothing against the board because I've known Bill since 91 and, everybody, for a lot of years, Ken since 91. And I'm very confident that this board will continue the great work that they've been doing for all these years. But what I want to say to you, to Linda, and to every other board member of color across the nation, when you have a single African-American mom that doesn't know how she's going to pay her bills, doesn't know where her children's next meals are going to come from, doesn't have money to do laundry, and she sends her kids to school with dirty clothes on, knowing they're going to be teased. And the list goes on and on and on. There's all kinds of barriers. And then she gets a phone call from us requesting a meeting. She loses a little bit of hope. And then she walks into the fact-finding meeting, and there's nobody there that looks like her. She loses yet another little piece of hope. And then she walks into the board meeting where they're going to decide her child's fate, and there's nobody there that looks like her. She loses all hope. And so if you never open your mouth, and I'm saying this to all board members, if you never open your mouth, you just need to know that sometimes you are that parent's only hope. Thank you, Larry, for all the years that you've served.
Thank you, Deb. Next is Sally Ellis.
Sally Ellis, 2216 North Nevada. I just want to thank all the board first. You've all done a marvelous job. You've got hard work to do and no pay, and it's wonderful. But I wanted to thank Pat, and Pat's not here, and Larry. Larry, you've been a great board member, and I appreciate you being there for the kids. And I have a little thing, something I made for you that I want to give you.
Thank you, Sally. Next is Vera Kelly.
So he saved the best for last. My name is Vera Kelly, and I reside at 4415 Jersey Ridge Road in Davenport, and I'm the president of the Davenport Branch 4019 NAACP. And see, I got all of my friends and your friends up here. We gave him a plaque on Saturday night to let him know how much we love him and how much we're going to miss him on the board. First, I want to say, and Dr. Tate is not even here tonight, I want to say thanks to Dr. Tate and all he do to make the Davenport School a place for changes. And second, I want to thank Larry for 11 years and Pat for 17 for working so hard on the school board, stepping up to make a difference, speaking out for and making the right and best decision for our students on their educational journey for their future life. Best of luck in your future, and we'll miss you on the school board. And Mary and Jamie, whatever you do in the decision making, just think, what if this was a decision for your son or daughter, and would you be able to say, I done my best? Because Martin Luther King stated, and I quote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." Thank you.
Well, thanks to everybody out there. Thank you very much, Linda and Deb and Sally and Vera and everybody that stood up with Vera. It's always important to participate at our open forums. And tonight is a special night for a lot of reasons, and the whole board really appreciates you being here. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Mr. President,
Director Crumwitty.
I move the consent agenda as presented by the administration.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Call for the vote. Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director Robertson.
Yes.
Director DeFow.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
My vote is yes. The motion carries. Regarding the approval of bills, please note the addendum to the agenda that's at your place. And you'll see that there's a voided check, which make sure it's read in the correct amount. May I have a motion regarding the approval of bills?
Mr. President,
Director Kluhl.
I move that the board approve the administration's recommendation on the adoption of bills for the listing period September 5th, 2013 through September 18th of 2013. Resolution is as follows. Resolved, all claims presented to the board having been duly certified as correct by the Secretary, reviewed by the administration and board members, and they are hereby audited and allowed as just claims and warrants drawn in the Treasury for the several amounts. Further resolved, the payment of claims and salaries be approved as presented with the following voided check, and that being check number 310339, payable to McGladrey and Pullen in the amount of $3,000. And that is a correction from the agenda item being $30,000.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Kluhl.
Just in terms of weighting, in terms of mistake, I would hate to see a $30,000 check written to the wrong vendor. $3,000 is somewhat better, but still.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? Call for the vote. Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director DeFow.
Yes.
Director Sherwood. Director Robertson.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Our superintendent, Tate, is at a conference tonight, and we have Bill Schneiden filling in. Is there a superintendent report? There's no report. Okay. Thank you. We'll move on to the annual items, requiring action. And you'll note that there's another item in the designation of financial institutions where there should be a comma, not a period, and you'll note that on your papers. May I have a motion regarding designation of financial institutions?
Mr. President,
Director Kluhl.
the Code of Iowa requires that the Board of Directors adopt a resolution naming financial institutions with which deposits may be made and the maximum amount that may be deposited in each financial institution at any one time. The list submitted is designed to cover the maximum possible amounts anticipated under the recommended revision in investment procedures. The administration recommends that the board adopt the following resolution. The resolution is as follows. Resolved by the Board of Directors of the Davenport Community School District in the counties of Scott and Muscatine, State of Iowa, that the following named financial institutions are hereby designated as depositories of funds for said school district in amounts not to exceed the amounts hereinafter set forth. And the school district's treasurer is hereby authorized to deposit the Davenport Community School District's funds in the amount not to exceed named for said financial institutions. Institutions are as follows. Wells Fargo, Davenport, Iowa, $60 million, maximum amount. U.S. Bank, Davenport, Iowa, $60 million. Northwest Bank and Trust Company, Davenport, $20 million. First Midwest Bank, North America, Davenport, $60 million. Quad City Bank and Trust, Davenport, Iowa, $20 million. The National Bank, Davenport, Iowa, $60 million. Bluegrass Savings Bank, Bluegrass, Iowa, $5 million. Buffalo Savings Bank in Buffalo, $5 million. Walcott Trust and Savings Bank in Walcott, Iowa, $5 million. Iowa Schools Joint Investment Trust, $45 million. Valley Bank, $20 million. Investors Management Group, IPAS, $45 million. And Pershing Bank of New York Mellon, New York, in the amount of $30 million, and that being a correction from the agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Kluhl.
Just wondering if, Claudia, the Iowa Schools Joint Investment Trust, is that an ongoing investment, or did we just start that again this year?
We currently have that account closed, but it's available to be reopened if we rejoin the Iowa School Board Association.
Okay.
We've left it on the list just to maintain that possibility.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional discussion? We'll call for the vote. Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Robertson.
Yes.
Director DeFau.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion regarding the appointment of 504 ADA coordinator?
Mr. President,
Director Sherwood.
I recommend the board accept the administration's recommendation to appoint Kendall Owa to serve as the Section 504 ADA coordinator for the 2013-14 school year.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Call for the vote. Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director Robertson.
Yes.
Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director DeFau.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion regarding annual resolution for payment of bills?
Mr. President,
Director Kluhl.
I move the board approve the following resolution. Be it resolved that in between regularly scheduled board meetings, that after the bills have been reviewed and verified by the administration and the board secretary-treasurer, the board president may be authorized to approve payment of claims and warrants drawn in the treasury for the several amounts, including payment of claims and salaries. Be it further resolved that the board will officially approve these warrants at the next regular board meeting, and the warrants will be entered in the minutes of record.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Call for the vote. Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director Robertson.
Yes.
Director DeFau.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion regarding appointment of legal counsel?
Mr. President,
Director Crumwitty.
I move the administration's recommendation that the board approve the district to continue to utilize the services of Lane and Waterman LLP as legal counsel to represent the district as necessary for the proper conduct of the legal affairs of the Davenport Community School District.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Call for the vote. Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director Robertson.
Yes.
Director DeFau.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Next are the annual meeting reports. We'll have our board secretary step up to the microphone.
Okay, good evening, everyone. In accordance with Board Policy Number 30402, Treasurer's Annual Report, a yearly account needs to be presented to the Board confirming the amounts in the general fund for the Davenport Community School District at the end of the fiscal year. All depositories or financial institutions designated by the Board were contacted by the auditing firm of McGladrey & Pullen. Depositories were asked to have a representative confirm in writing the balance of deposits as of June 30th, 2013. The Secretary's monthly financial report was prepared by our accounting department for June 30th, 2013. The balances have been compared with the confirmations we received from the depositories. Now I'm going to read the name of the institution and the amount in savings and checking, investments, and then the total. For Bluegrass Savings Bank, cash investments is 0, so total is 0. Buffalo Savings Bank is 0 for savings and checking investment. Valley Bank, cash, savings and checking 0, and investment 0. Northwest Bank and Trust is also 0 for cash and investments. Quad City Bank and Trust is also 0 for savings and checking and investments. Walcott Trust and Savings Bank is also 0 for cash and savings and checking and investments. The National Bank, the balance is $31,844,017.61. Investments is $7,001,501.16 for a total of $38,845,518.77. For First Midwest Savings, savings and checking, $18,511.93. Investments, 0. The total, $18,511.93. Wells Fargo, $56,024,027.88. Investments, $1,356,604.17 for a total of $57,380,632.05. U.S. Bank, cash, checking and savings, 0. Investments, $4,504.50 for a total of $4,504.50. TELF Investors Management Group, 0 savings and checking, 0 investment, 0 total. And then Iowa Schools Joint Investment Trust, cash, savings and checking, 0, investment 0, total 0. So the total amount in savings and checking is $87,886,557.42. Investments is $23,426,626.34 for a total of $111,313,183.76.
Are there any questions for the board secretary? Director Sherwood.
Just, and this is kind of just out of left field. You've heard of socially responsible investing. where you try to pick investments that support green energy, for instance, that go into places that countries that don't violate human rights, that sort of thing. Do we do anything to see where our money is going when we're investing? Do we try to pick institutions that invest in Iowa, for instance? Do we try to pick institutions that invest in green jobs? Do we do anything like that?
I would have to defer to Claudia on that question.
Most of those types of investments are not things that a school district in the state of Iowa is allowed to do under Iowa code. We're pretty restricted to normal, I guess, bank financial institutions, savings and checkings. We do a little bit of certificates of deposit and a very small amount of commercial paper. But as far as picking different types of investment funds that are labeled as socially responsible, green, that type of thing, those are not funds that a school district's allowed to invest in.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions or discussion? All right, thank you very much. At this point, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the annual meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 This meeting is adjourned. Now, for all of you out there, we're going to have a couple more meetings. That's not the end of the night.
You mean I don't get to leave yet?
No, you can't leave yet. All right. I called this organizational meeting of the Davenport Community School District Board of Directors to order. I'd ask the Board Secretary to read the canvass of votes from the Commissioner of Elections.
These are the results from the school board elections held September the 10th, 2013. There was a total of 5,867 votes cast, of which Richard A. Kluhl received 1,274 votes. Maria Dickman received 1,147 votes. Elaine Creasy received, did I say that correctly? Cressy, sorry. Received 1,070 votes. Jamie Schneider received 1,190 votes. Patricia Zamora received 1,109 votes. And then there was a scattering of 77 votes. So we declare Richard A. Kluhl, Jamie Schneider, and Maria Dickman duly elected to the Davenport Community School District to 4-year terms. Congratulations. And also for the Proposition D that was voted on, there was a total of 2,129 votes cast, of which yes received 1,822 votes, no received 307 votes.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to recognize our departing board members at this point. And with Pat not being here, I still want to take the opportunity to recognize her. Pat served for 16 or 17 years on this board, and she did a lot of things for the board. She did a lot of things for the community, and she's been in this area for over 55 years. She was a teacher at Smart in the mid-70s, and she had some other positions within the board. Within the district. Back in 1996, the Quad City Times did a feature on board candidates that were running at that time. The article said that a long time earlier, Pat had made a list of goals she wanted to accomplish in her lifetime. She said that there are only two things she has not accomplished yet: being on the school board and learning how to fly. She said she had a friend who was willing to teach her how to fly, and she is running for the school board. She also said that the truth of the matter is that people have been so good to me. This is something I can do to give back. I've been very lucky. Pat served for a total of 16 years. She served as president for 8 years, from 2004 through 2012. At this point, I'd ask if any of the board members have anything they'd like to say about Pat. Parting words? Anybody? Director Sherwood.
Yeah, I wish she were here. When I came onto the board, like any new board member, like the two new ones that are coming on now, you're a little bit at sea. And Pat kind of took me under her wing, and we met for lunch several times, and she kind of helped me navigate that first 6 months. And she was a woman who I really relied on for her wisdom. You never had to guess where she was coming from. She'd tell you right to your face anything she thought, and I appreciated that. And we didn't always agree, but I always respected her point of view. And I absolutely know that she was here for the kids. She wasn't here for ego or recognition or anything else. She was here because she really loves kids and worked for them, and that's all I require out of anybody. I don't have to agree with them as long as I know they care about kids and they're willing to put themselves out for them. So she's a terrific lady, and I'm sorry she's not here tonight.
Anybody else? Director Robertson.
Yes, I was Pat vice president when she was on the board for part of the time. And the one thing that I always enjoyed was going over to her office for meeting, and she always provided coffee, which is one of my loves. So that was a great place for me to go and meet. But she was always talking about things that we could do to improve our school district, and she really had a love of the kids. And I'm very sorry that she's not here tonight, because I would like to say personally, to her, thanks for all that you've done over the years.
Anybody else? Director Kluhl.
Well, both Director Robertson and I served under Pat as vice president for a time, and there's just no doubt that Pat's interests were with the kids of this district, first and foremost. She was not only direct with board members, she was also direct with legislators. I remember being in her office at one time. She was on a conversation with Senator Joe Sang, and it got loud. But she made her points, and she and Senator Sang, I think, are still good friends to this date, but very clear where she stood on the issues. Pat was a mentor, I think, for many of us, as Bill had said. One of the most poignant things I remember about Pat when she was president, presidents always do a little speech before graduating classes, and she did one at the AI Wireless Center that was good for the kids from North, Central, and West, but the one that she did that was most meaningful to the kids was at the Kimberly Center. And she told about how she dropped out of high school as a young girl, had several children, got married, and eventually got her GED, went on to get her teacher certificate and her administrator's certificate, graduated magna cum laude from University of Iowa, and that wasn't quite enough. Evidently, after flying and such, she said, well, I need to do something else. So husband said, you've always wanted to get a law degree. Why don't you go to law school? So she went to law school, got her jurisprudence degree. Works with 3 of her kids, her children, over at the law office in Kirkwood. And Pat has been a source of stability for this board over the years. There was a time before I came on that she was on when things weren't very stable. And she provided that stability for this board that put us in the position where we're at today, where we're being able to do the things that we're doing for kids. So, Pat, thank you.
Anybody else? Director DeFau.
I would echo the sentiments of everyone at the table, and regret that Pat wasn't here tonight to allow us to express our appreciation for her. And I would say that at the time I was contemplating running for the board, that she was very inspirational to me, and I always appreciated her forthrightness and the fact that she was willing to stand on principle, and even if it wasn't the popular decision, to stand on principle for what she believed was right. And she certainly has dedicated her entire life, both personal and professional, to children, and the district in the long run's better off for that service and that time that she dedicated to our students. So especially grateful for that tonight.
Director Crumwitty.
Thank you. Well, Pat and I go back further than I think most members on this school board. Pat and I began our teaching career in 1972 at Smart Junior High. We started the same year, so I've known Pat for many, many years, and I've admired her as a teacher. She was a wonderful classroom teacher, and I admired her as a school board member for all of these years. She was very honest, open about what she believed in, and didn't mince any words, was very open with, you knew, like Director Sherwood indicated, you knew where Pat was coming from, and she was very quick to let people know that, and I appreciate that, Pat. Pat's family, her children, her grandchildren, and her great-grandchildren are all products of the Davenport Community School District. She loved this school district and has done much for this school district as an educator and a school board member and as an attorney. I was disappointed when she went into law and leaving the Davenport School District, but I was very happy that for her and for her career, because I knew that's what she wanted to do, and so I'm disappointed that Pat's not with us tonight, because I will miss her as a school board member, and I just want to thank Pat for everything she's done for this school district.
Thank you. We have some things that attend outgoing board members, and usually we have a certificate. Tonight we took a little bit different approach. I just want to let people be aware. So instead of a little paper that says something, we've got a bouquet of real flowers, and it says, presented to Pat Zamora. Sorry. That's what it is.
Do I need to read that for you, President?
Should we hold it for him out here?
In recognition and appreciation for 16 years of dedicated service to the Davenport Community School District, presented this 23rd day of September 2013. I too, I'll miss Pat. She was very forthright. And we have a couple of other things that we'll be giving her later. We also had Sherry Womack. Would you please step up? And unfortunately, Pat won't be here to receive whatever you've got, but kind of pretend that she is, okay? All right.
Okay. Since I do not like to speak off the cuff, I wrote my stuff down. We know that Pat has a passion for alternative education and has spent a large portion of her career advocating for it. We also know that she realized through she realized through experience that many students need a different setting and a different way of learning. We thank her for her dedication to the alternative cause, as well as her service to the Davenport School District and the school board. We wanted to present her this unique clock. Okay. This was created by our students in our woodworking class and our anime art class. So, there you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry, and thanks to all the students that participated and helped to build this clock. I think we're going to move on to Larry.
Mr. President, before you move on,
Director Robertson.
could I get some coffee, please, before you move?
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Certainly. Larry's been a school board member since 2001. He was first appointed after the death of Jim Hester and then elected in 2002. He served as vice president for 4 years. A couple things we found out about Larry. One is that he reads at least 2 newspapers every day. And he drinks coffee, apparently, all day, every day. And some of this, anyway, what this says is that you rarely see him go to the bathroom. It must be absorbed by all the peanuts that he eats. Larry, it says here that there was no greater joy for Larry than handing out diplomas. He's dedicated his life outside of home and John Deere to the achievement gap. In fact, he and Jim Andrews and Deb Stevenson are co-founders of an organization called Partnership for Bridging the Gap. And their belief statement is that Partnership for Bridging the Gap shares in the belief that Davenport Community Schools can be a high-performing organization and a school district of choice. Moreover, that closing the achievement gap is essential to the preservation of democracy and to providing all young people with the requisite skills for economic self-sufficiency. And Larry has always believed that we are the district of choice. At this point, I would ask if any of the board members would care to say anything about Larry or to Larry. Seeing, Director Crumwoody.
Well, I've had the privilege of sitting next to Larry for a couple of years here, and I've always appreciated his guidance because Larry was very helpful to me as a former vice president on the board and would clue me in when I needed cluing in. So thank you, Larry, for that. I also want to thank you for all your years of service to this board and to this community, for your volunteer work that you've done, not only as a board member, but within the community, within the Davenport School District, with all the mentoring that you've done for young students. And thank you for your dedication and your drive to increase preschool education in this community. And I have always appreciated that. I've been a strong advocate of preschool education for many, many years, and to have you sitting here and advocating for preschool really made me feel good, and is doing great things in this community, because we do have a model preschool in Davenport, and thanks to Larry for all of his hard work in getting things going in this community. So thank you, Larry, and I'll miss your not only your coffee drinking, but also, okay, it's time to go to work at John Deere. So good luck to you.
Anybody else? Director Sherwood.
Yeah, and I said this last time, I think, but you leave a big hole when you're leaving the board. There's probably not there's no way to fill that hole. You take a point of view with you, a perspective with you, a history with you that we can't duplicate, and not just as a representative of the minority community, but I really appreciated the acumen that you bring with you from your professional life that has really enriched our decision making in many areas, and with personnel decisions and those kinds of things. I appreciate you in very difficult expulsion hearings and those kinds of things, because I know that your interest is in what's best for the kid, and not necessarily to create an example of the kid. I appreciate your passion for kids of poverty, and I share that with you. And there's a big hole going to be opened up with you gone. And I told you before the board and meeting that my expectation is you can work your rear end off to find us a candidate next time around that can bring some of your background back to the board. So thank you very much.
Anybody else? Director Kluhl.
Well, I guess I was probably the last man standing, the first person that introduced you and recognized you up here at the board table when you first got elected, when you were chosen to serve. I've been envious of Larry for 11 years because he's got this Alex Haley voice, and anybody speaking after Larry sounds like Don Knotts. And so absolutely true. And so oftentimes I think just by sheer tenor of his voice, he's won many an argument. It's very persuasive. But I don't have a lot that I want to say, because the one thing that I do want to say is that it's what Larry does behind the voice that's important to me. And as I get older, I start to understand things in a way that I didn't understand them some years ago. And what it is about Larry, it's who he is and what he stands for. And I'm not sure where that comes from, but it's something that resonates with me, and I think it has resonated with this board, and it will continue after you're gone, Larry. And I do look forward to continued discussions with you about issues, but your presence will be missed, but then again, it won't be gone.
Director DeFau.
I'm going to try. For the last 11 years, I have referred to Larry as my right-hand man, because figuratively and literally, he's been to my right all these years. He's a board member whose opinion I take most seriously and consider at the board table. He's a person that if he tells me that there's something I need to pay attention to in this community or in our schools, I know that he's not misguiding me, and that's something that we need to do and take seriously. I've appreciated, as Director Crumwoody said, his absolute passion for preschool education, and also for the fact of reminding us all the time that it's about all kids, and we have to do for all kids. Can't imagine.
You know, I've had the occasion to spend some time with Larry outside of the board meetings, and I've learned a lot. And I've learned things that it would be hard to describe in a forum like this. But he shared a lot of his personal life, a lot of things that, some of his experiences, some of the things that helped make him who he is. I look to Larry as a leader, and he's a leader in the community. And I was thinking about Larry earlier today, and and I thought about the old commercial, and I think it was something like, when E.F. Hutton speaks, people listen. And I think much as Director Defoe expressed, and Director Kluhl, I mean, there's, whether it's gravitas or credibility, there's something about Larry that makes you really appreciate who he is. And one of the things, and later on I'll have an occasion to express some things, but I had the privilege of attending the NAACP banquet earlier over the weekend. And I realized the leadership in that organization, and Larry participates as a vice president there as well. And I believe that Larry is a strong leader in our community, and he will continue to work with and for the kids in the Davenport School District, and probably in the whole state of Iowa. Larry, if you would like to say anything, we've got a few more things afterwards, but if you have any words, the floor is yours.
I do not. Oh, yes, I do. I thought I would do a small rendition of Lou Rawls first, but we don't have time. So anyway, you know, I was telling the student board members when I come in, I said, if I cry, don't laugh at me. But these guys are all crying, so I'm not going to cry, okay? But the one thing that I wanted to say is that, and I have a lot of things to say, so turn it off, Bill, so don't buzz me when I start talking, okay? Mary, thanks for always having coffee and calling and reminding me about meetings and making sure that I go where I should go, okay? When this first started for me, I was on the advisory council to the school board, and they would give us projects, and we would work on it and come back and make recommendations to the school board, you know, and we set off on the side, and really no one knew who we were, and that was fine with me. And this guy back here, the late Jim Hester, would always call me and ask me things about policy, and we talk, and then he said, why don't you run for the school board? I said, you're there, that's enough. I don't have time for that. And I always said that I wouldn't do it while my kids were at school, so I did. And as the years progressed, and later on he asked me, I had no intention. I said, I'm not going to do that. I didn't tell him that, but I wasn't going to do that. And then when he was in the hospital on his bed, and he asked me, he said, Larry, would you run for school board? And how can you say no? So I said yes. All I had to do was try, right? So I came that night, and there were like 12 candidates, I think, and I was having a good time with it. And always be careful what you say. The press was there. So I turned around to my wife, and I said, I got this thing won. And I was just relieving the tension, okay? The next day in the paper said Robertson had one going in. I never said that. So anyway, but to the teachers union, I know you guys out there, please stand. Please stand. You know, I never got to tell you guys this because every time we had negotiation, I always thought there was going to be one more. And then we would settle. And I never got to say thank you for all that you do. And Karen, the way you conducted the meeting, you know, no one ever got mad. It was always very professional. And I'm just saying that I'm going to miss you guys. I'm going to miss that part of it. So thank you for coming out and sharing my last night tonight. So thank you very much. Ty, where's Ty? If any of your people are here, and I know there's at least one, would you guys please stand? You know, the thing that I liked about them was we would go into sessions and we would talk. And, you know, the first time I ever met Ty and went into session, I thought, we'll have this thing wrapped up today. And when he came back in the afternoon, it was an entirely different conversation. I said, well, I won't fall for that again. But the thing that I always said about them was I liked their DNA, their demeanor, how they presented things. And I never thought that it was personal. You know, it was about, here's what we want. Here's what the school has to offer. And somewhere in the middle here, we're going to figure this thing out and we're going to sell it. So, Ty, I'm going to miss it, okay? I'm going to miss it, but thank you guys an awful lot. And to Claudia for always having peanuts there for me. And for all of the district people that represented that, you guys were very professional. And, you know, we had some long days sometimes, but we always got through it. And I want to just say thank you guys for being here tonight, because I understand that there are lots of places that you could be. To my NAACP friends, thank you for showing up and always being here. And to all of my friends. And one thing that I want to say is that I'm glad I heard, you know, Nikki say I represented all the kids, not just kids of color, but all kids. But if you were hurting, you know, that was kind of special to me, because I understand what an education will do for you. You're looking at the product up there. So whenever I push and push and push, it's always about understanding that a lot of things go away if you can get an education in your community. You know, crime, poverty, all of those things that take away from having a great community. So that's why I push for it. But my favorite of all, she's out there. The principal, would you please stand up? Children Villages. You know, to my board members, and I'm saying this to you guys, it is a game changer. I know I have a kid at my house that's 5-year-old that went there. It's a game changer. And we have to do everything we can, because for kids that don't have a great home, that there's no one there saying, do this, do this, do this. It happens at Children Villages. And if we can't find a way to fund that, then we are doing a disservice to our community, because I believe that's a way to close the achievement gap. I believe that is a way to raise the scores, test scores for us in our district. Okay? Thank you. So I'm asking you guys. So I'm asking you guys, for me, pick up the banner and carry that. And I heard you talk about that. Richard Wallstrand, please stand. You know, he's from Bettendorf School District. Okay? At the time that I was running, but he's a John Deere guy. Okay? He's family. He's a John Deere guy. When I was running, you know, and I had my back, you know, to the audience, so I couldn't see anything, and everybody had someone speaking for them. I had nobody to speak. And all of a sudden, this guy come walking up and said, I'm here to speak on behalf of Larry Roberts for the position of Board of Directors. And I thought, wow, I didn't even know that was going to happen. So, Richard, always John Deere, always my friend. Thank you very much, my friend.
Thank you.
Yeah. You know, when the papers were filed for people to run for school board, it didn't bother me a bit. They got through that day. I said, I'm cool. And then they had the election, and I went to some of the forums, and then I was still cool. Today, about 4 o'clock, I said, I can't do this. I can't go to this meeting tonight, because it's just like it all come down. And then when Helen said, this is your last meeting, the bomb fell out. I thought, oh, boy, I can't do this. And then I saw Nikki in the parking lot. I said, don't look at me at the board meeting. I said, don't look at me. So, you know, for me, it's been a blast, okay? I have truly enjoyed it. I have truly enjoyed helping families. And another thing that I want my colleagues to understand is that families have a better understanding of what their kids need for their educational opportunities than we do. So I would hope that we would listen. And to all of you, okay, I love you dearly. Davenport is my home. When I came to this town, people were directing me different places. I said, I'm living in Davenport, okay? And that's where I will remain, is in Davenport. So to all of you, hey, I love you tremendously. And Claudia, you know where I live, so you can send the peanuts there. So but you again, hey, thank you all very, very much. Thank you for voting for me all the years and letting me serve, because I think that is one of the greatest things that you can do is give service to your community. And I have done that, and I have given it, and I wasn't looking for any awards. It is because it's the right thing to do, okay? Thank you very much.
Huh? No, you don't leave yet. We've got a couple more things. In fact, I think what we'll do now is, Kathy, would you come up and Larry, if you wouldn't mind stepping out front here, and Kathy, I don't know if you can speak loud enough or if you want to use the microphone. All right. Okay, thank you.
Larry, I want to thank you. I have the honor tonight not only to represent myself, but all my little friends at Children's Villages, their families, and the staff, and saying thank you for always supporting early childhood education and for giving Davenport Community School District's youngest students the opportunity to explore what if. Thank you for that. And above and beyond that, I want to thank you for all your dedication and time when we moved into the new Children's Village and for asking those difficult questions. Is this a safe environment? What if? What if? Because as a result, I believe we have a safe and nurturing environment where our youngest children can learn, grow, and develop. So thank you very much. And in celebration, we want you to have this wonderful picture. We had a copy made for you. This is of our first birthday at our new site. And you're going to see not only all of your little friends at Children's Villages, but there's one little special guy in here too that's going to be in there.
Well, it's hard after all of this. It feels like it's almost anticlimactic at this point. But we've got a couple of more things to give to Larry. And they're a little bit perfunctory, but I'll do my best. So Larry, why don't you come out front again? So, for retiring board members, they get what's called a golden pass for the Davenport Community Schools. And this admits Larry and a spouse free entry to all public school extracurricular events. And that's a lifetime. Hang on.
This is me in the show choir.
And I get my fingerprints all over it, but again, I didn't want to just have a certificate of appreciation, so we give him one of these, and it's presented to Larry Robertson in recognition and appreciation for 11 years of dedicated service to the Davenport Community School District. Presented this 23rd day of September
Vera, will you bring the truck around? Help me.
Well, I tell you what, as we're closing out of this segment of our meeting, and we're going to be moving on to the oath of office to administered and newly elected directors. And I know that we've all expressed our appreciation, but I really want to give Larry one more round of standing ovation, please. All right, we'll move on to the oath of office for newly elected directors. And I think that includes all elected, not just newly, doesn't it? Okay. All right. So, Board Secretary, would you please step up?
I'd like to ask Maria Dickman to come up, please, and take the oath of office. Right there is fine. And raise your right hand. And repeat after me. I, in your name,
I, Maria Dickman,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
and I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties
discharge all the duties
of the office of Davenport School Board Director
of the office of Davenport School Board Director
in the County of Scott, Iowa,
in the County of Scott, Iowa,
as now or hereafter required by law.
as now or hereafter required by law.
Okay, congratulations. And here is your certificate. Jamie Schneider, could you come forward, please, to take the oath of office? You just stand right there. And raise your right hand. I, and state your name,
I, Jamie Snyder,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties of the office
discharge all the duties of the office
of Davenport School Board Director
of Davenport School Board Director
in the County of Scott, Iowa,
in the County of Scott, Iowa,
as now or hereafter required by law.
as now or hereafter required by law.
Congratulations. And here is your- And Director Kluhl. Could you raise your right hand? I, Richard Kluhl,
I, Richard Kluhl,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties of the office
discharge all the duties of the office
of Davenport School Board Director
of Davenport School Board Director
in the County of Scott, Iowa,
in the County of Scott, Iowa,
as hereafter required by law.
as now or hereafter required by law.
Okay, congratulations. And just a few housekeeping things after the meeting. I need for all three of you to sign your oath of office for the record.
Okay, thank you. We're getting ready to move on to the organization of the new board, and there will be, I'm going to adjourn this portion of the meeting. At that point, our board secretary will come up to the microphone, and we will go through the elections for the officers. So during this time, I'd like the two new board members to come up to the board table and take your seats, and we'll move on. All right. Before I adjourn this portion of the meeting, the seats that you just took are possibly temporary. After the board elections for officers, we may have movement of the seats additional to this. So at this point, I will adjourn the meeting sine die. Secretary Carruthers, would you go ahead and reorganize our board?
Okay. As the board secretary, it is my responsibility to assist the board with the election of officers for a one-year period of time. I will first ask for a nomination for temporary chair to conduct the election meeting. Nominations do not need a second. May I have a nomination for temporary chair?
Madam Secretary,
Director DeFau.
I nominate Mary Carruthers to serve as temporary chair.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, the nominations are closed. Is it the consensus of the board to ask myself, Mary Carruthers, to serve as temporary chair? All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? I therefore declare myself, Mary Carruthers, to serve as temporary chair for the election of officers. Okay, I'm going to explain the voting process. The rules of order for the voting process for the election of officers. If there is more than one nomination, the board automatically casts their votes for president and vice president with a signed written ballot. We will use the Roman system for this process if there are more than two people nominated. If there are 3 nominations for an office, there will first be vote by written ballot, and the person with the highest number of votes will not be included in the second ballot. The second vote will be between those receiving the lower number of votes. The winner of the second ballot will then challenge a person with the higher votes from the first ballot. If there are 2 or more people nominated, each person will be given a few minutes to share the reasons why they should be elected to office prior to taking the vote. Following the comments, the written vote will be held using the rules discussed. Any questions? Okay. If there is only one nomination, are the remaining board members willing to cast their vote by roll call vote or by a written ballot. I will call each of your names, and you will answer either roll call or written ballot. If there is no census, it automatically defaults to written ballot. Director Kluhl.
Roll call.
Director DeFau.
Roll call.
President Johansson.
Roll call.
Director Crumwitty.
Roll call.
Director Sherwood.
Roll call.
Director Schneider.
Roll call.
Director Dickman.
Roll call.
Therefore, if we have only one nomination, we will have consensus by roll call. Okay, we're going to start with the election of president. May I have a nomination for the office of president?
Madam Secretary,
Director Crumwitty.
I nominate Ralph Johansson for president of the school board.
President Johansson, do you accept the nomination?
You know, I've thought about this for quite a while, and there are reasons why I would, and there are reasons why I wouldn't. I appreciate the nomination. And I think that our board and our district are so important. I've been thinking a lot about a lot of things, whether you know, as recently we talked about, are we doing a good job? And I think each of us probably has asked that. Am I doing a good job? I think one of our directors, I forget the words, but it was like, have I made a difference in the 8 years that I've spent here? I think about that, and I think about the need for competition in these elections as well. And I think we all on the board, we try to encourage competition when it comes to new board members. I think it's great that we get new board members out there. I think that competition in these officer positions is important as well. There's also a concept of change, and sometimes it's important to change. Sometimes status quo isn't sufficient. So I say all this because I have to say that I've been thinking a lot about all of this, and so and probably part of those words is really just last minute thinking as well, and I will accept the nomination.
Are there any other nominations for the office of president? Hearing no more nominations, the nominations are declared closed. Since there is only one person nominated, is it your wish the board elect Ralph Johansson as president? When I call your name, please answer yes or no. Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Schneider.
Yes.
Director Dickman.
Yes.
Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director Johansson.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director DeFau.
Yes.
I therefore declare Ralph Johansson president of the school board for the 2013-14 school year. Congratulations. All right, at this point, we'll move on to the election of vice president. May I have a motion for the office of vice president?
Madam Chairman,
Director Sherwood.
I'd like to nominate Director Crumwitty for the vice presidency of the board.
Director Crumwitty, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I will.
Are there any other nominations for the office of Vice President?
Madam Chairperson,
Director Schneider.
I would like to nominate Director DeFau as Vice President.
Director DeFau, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I do.
Are there any other nominations for the office of Vice President?
Madam Chairperson,
President Johansson.
I'd like to nominate Rich Klool.
Director Klool, do you accept the nomination?
I think this is pretty exciting. I would accept the nomination, yes.
Oh, wow. All right, this should be very interesting. Okay. As I mentioned a moment ago, we have 3 people who are nominated for the office of Vice President. I'd like to give all 3 people an opportunity to speak as to why they would like to serve in this capacity. Director DeFau.
There was a time in the past when I served in the position of vice president, and in thinking about responsibility and trying to shape some of the direction that we're going in, especially in light of some of the challenges in front of us, the budget considerations that are facing us, some of the achievement issues that we're going to be facing in the next year. I think that I have something to bring to the table in those conversations. I also, as the only parent of current Davenport School District students, think that gives me a unique perspective. It allows me to be close to the decisions that we're making and to experience firsthand their consequence in the classroom. I'm excited about the opportunities that are ahead of us, and I also think that the perspective of a woman is one that would be a value added, given that the greater majority of our board at this time is not, that is male. So basically, those are my primary reasons for running.
Thank you. Director Crumwitty.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I've been in this position for a couple of years, and I've really enjoyed, first of all, working with our president and with this board. And I'm very pleased that our president agreed to accept the nomination. I would very much like to continue working with him. I think as a board, and because of the leadership of this board, we've been able to make some huge strides in our relationships within the community, within the city, and working together with the city, in working with our legislators. And I think that I would very much like to continue doing that as vice president. And I would hope that this board would support me. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Klool.
As I mentioned earlier, this board has not always been the voice of calm and reason that you see before you here tonight. There was a time before I was elected to the board that it was quite fractious. There was a lot of stuff going on that was not healthy. It was not promoting the goodwill of our students. Quite frankly, it was a number of people like Jim Hester who began us to get back on track. And then, as I said before, was Pat Zamora, who sat next to me, whose core value was stability. And she brought that forward to the board. And like I said, I think at this point in time, the board has some opportunities to move forward because of the stability that we have had over the last 4, 5, 6 years. I would be satisfied to be a member of the Legislative Advocacy Committee because I think it's very important work that we're doing. But I also, as Jamie and Maria know, promised during the forums this year that I was going to make a difference in the next 4 years. I've been on for 11, 12 years, and quite frankly, we haven't made enough of a difference. We haven't done it. We've tried. Believe me, we have tried. But it hasn't happened. And I think the only way to make that commitment, to make things happen, is to be in a position of leadership with the President. And so I accepted this challenge tonight because I believe that I am at the point in service with this board that I could take us forward in the next 4 years, or the next year following as Vice President. So that's why I would like to be Vice President.
Thank you. At this time, we'll be taking a written ballot. I'm going to give each board member paper that has who you will vote for, and you need to sign that, fold it in half, and then I will collect it. And with this first round, I guess is what I'll call it, since this is my first time doing this, the winner of this round then will, after that's determined, will be set aside, and then we'll do another round of votes, and then, well, we'll stop right there. Okay. So from this, we're going to see who the winner is. Director Crumwitty receives 1 vote. Director Crumwitty receives 2 votes. Director Klohl receives 1 vote. Director DeFau receives 1 vote. Director Crumwitty receives 3 votes. Director DeFau receives 2 votes. Director DeFau receives 3 votes. So that's Director Klohl receives 1 vote, Director DeFau receives 3, and Director Crumwitty receives 3. So I need some help. Because we have a
Why don't you call a 5-minute recess?
I call it.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair,
Okay.
Chairperson.
I would like to call a 5-minute recess.
Okay. Thank you. And that everybody can take 5 minutes while we discuss this.
It'll probably be appreciated. Excuse me, everyone. We're going to call the meeting back to order. Okay. After consulting with several people, Rich has graciously allowed for us to have a runoff vote between Director DeFau and Director Crumwitty. And that's what, since we do have a tie, and the process that I explained earlier, we can't really go by that because there's a tie. Director DeFau has 3, Director Crumwitty has 3, Director Klohl had 1. So thank you, Director Klohl, and we will now have a runoff vote between Director DeFau and Director Crumwitty. Okay. Director Crumwitty, 1 vote. Director Crumwitty, 2 votes. Director Crumwitty, 3 votes. Director DeFowl, 1 vote. Director Crumwitty. Director DeFowl. Director DeFowl has 3 votes. Director Crumwitty has 4 votes. I declare Director Crumwitty Vice President of the Davenport School Board for the 2013-14 school year.
President Johansson,
Director DeFoe.
I do believe that the votes have to be read for legality purpose.
Thank you, Director DeFow. Ken Crumwitty. I think this is Ralph. I don't recognize your signature somehow. I think it's Ralph Johansson voted for Ken Crumwitty. I'll be able to narrow it down.
Yeah, you should know my signature.
I know, but it doesn't look like your signature. Okay. Director Kluhl voted for Director Crumwitty. Director Dickman voted for Director Crumwitty. Director Sherwood voted for Director Crumwitty. Director DeFow voted for Director DeFow. Director Schneider voted for Director DeFow. And Director Johansson voted for Director DeFow. So Ken Crumwitty voted for Director Crumwitty. Thank you. Okay, congratulations, and I will be administering the oath of office to our newly elected officers. President Johansson, would you please stand? I, and state your name. Yes.
I, Ralph Johansson,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to support the Constitution of the United States
to support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I faithfully and impartially,
and that I faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge the duties of the office of School Board President.
discharge the
Duties?
say officer duties,
Discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of the office
of the office
of School Board President
of Board President
in the Davenport Community School District
in the Davenport Community School District
as now or hereafter required by law.
as now or hereafter required by law.
Thank you. Director Crumwitty, would you please stand and raise your hand, please? I, and state your name.
I, Ken Crumwitty,
Do solemnly swear
solemnly swear
to support the Constitution of the United States
to support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I faithfully and impartially,
and that I faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of the office of School Board Vice President
of the office of School Board Vice President
in the Davenport Community School District
in the Davenport Community School
as now or hereafter required by law.
as now hereafter required by law.
Thank you and congratulations. I now turn the chair back over to the president.
All right, thank you. We have a variety of committees that, and representative positions that are committees of the board or committees of the district. And to the extent that I can, I'd like to appoint those right away. We have one board member serving on the Teacher Compensation Committee, and that's Director Sherwood. Director Sherwood, would you intend to continue to participate on that? Okay? All right. We had a second member that was Director Zamora. The administration has asked for 2 people on that committee. It's an ad hoc committee that I don't think will last very long. Are there any board members that would want to volunteer to participate on that committee? Director Schneider.
I would like to participate on that.
Are there any others? Okay. We also have a representative to the Urban Education Network. Director Zamora has been the representative to the UEN for at least a few years. That is a position that I don't know that it takes a lot of time. I think it takes a little bit of travel. I think she goes to Des Moines occasionally. And there is periodic interface with the UEN, and basically you would act as a liaison as well to our district. I'm asking for one person to be that representative. Is there anybody that has an interest in participating as representative to the UEN?
Having served on that steering committee before, I'd be willing to be the representative for the district.
Thank you. Are there any others? Okay. We'll move on to the policy committee. Normally, the policy committee is a committee of the board, and we have had up to 3 members of the board participate on that. There's no particular set number of board members that have to participate on it. Are there board members that would like to participate on the policy committee?
Mr. President,
Director Sherwood?
I would like to continue on the policy committee.
Any others?
As
Director
would I.
Dufault. Okay. Are there any others? Well, I got to say, I think the policy committee is a great committee, and I'd like to put my name in there as well. Any others? Okay, we'll move on to the Legislative Advocacy Committee. This committee is a larger committee. It's a committee of the board. It's currently directed by Director Kluhl, and there are 2 other committee members that are on there from the board, and there are a variety of additional members from the district or the administration. Would any of the board members like to participate on Legislative Advocacy Committee?
I'd be willing to continue.
Any others?
I will continue on that.
Any others? Part of the reason that we allow up to 3 board members is because of our open meetings laws, and we are careful to observe that we don't have a majority of the board in a position where they might be making decisions that would get around the laws. Are there any other board members that would like to participate on legislative advocacy? If not, I'd like to put my name on for consideration of that committee as well. We have an agenda committee, and on this agenda committee, I believe that our policy actually calls for the agenda committee being the president, the vice president, and the superintendent. For many years, Director Robertson has participated on that committee as well, And I believe Director Kluel, at one point you spent a year on that as an added member. Is that correct?
As vice president.
Was vice president. Okay. There has been some talk about opening that fourth position up. And we're in the organization section of a new board. This is an opportunity that we could take to make a change. And before I make a decision, I would ask if there are any comments the board members would like to make regarding the agenda committee makeup, and especially for that other position that's been vacated by Director Robertson. Director Cromedy.
Mr. President, I have been on the agenda committee for the last couple of years, and I have thoroughly enjoyed it. But this is a committee that I really feel strongly about rotating membership on the committee, and the president and the vice president both sit on that committee. But I think it would be healthy to have another board member on it. Director Robertson sat on that committee, and what I might suggest is that instead of just having people rotate every month, that perhaps we would have board members, if they so desire, to volunteer to be on that agenda committee and perhaps serve up to like 6 months and then switch, so we would allow another person to have an opportunity to be on that committee. And especially for new members, I was thinking it would be very helpful, I would think, as a new member on the board, that we would begin that whole process with the most senior members on the board and then work our way through. So we would start out with the third member of that committee being the most senior, and then work down to the next, and then the next, and then the next. That would give most people on the board over the next 2 years, before we have another election, opportunities to be part of that. I was thinking, first of all, of a shorter time, but as being part of that agenda committee, sometimes we plan out up to 3 months, and so I think longer than 3 months would be much healthier. I think if we say, well, half a year you're going to be part of the agenda committee, and then switch it. So that's my input.
Is there any other discussion on this? Director Sherwood.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Ken. I think at least 6 months if we did something like that, and even a year wouldn't be terrible. I do think it'd be nice to see people rotate through. I'm always kind of mystified by how you guys get to where you get, and so it'd be interesting to see that process. But at the same time, I've been pretty content with how your results. I think that you've represented us fairly, so I don't have any particular bones about the way it's being done now, but I take Ken at his word that this would be an important experience for us, so I would say that would be fine if we did it every 6 months to a year, something like that.
All right. Any other discussion? Director Dickman.
I would appreciate the opportunity to serve for a shorter period of time to gain the experience from that.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Director Snyder.
I too like the idea of the shorter term where we can rotate, because there were some other committees that I was interested in, being a part of, but I'm still trying to grasp my hands around this whole, time commitment, being new, and what's involved with everything, as well as maintaining my regular day job. So without overcommitting myself, but I do like the idea of a shorter term and giving us a chance to get our feet wet.
All right. Anybody else? I'm going to make an executive decision then that we will continue to have that fourth position on the agenda committee. I think that the policy committee would probably have to review the agenda committee policy at some point to make sure that what we're doing matches our policy. In general, and I think we'll write this up at a later time, but the format will probably be significantly along the lines that were discussed by Director Crumwitty. I don't know who, and if we use the most senior, that's an approach that we can do, or that we can use. I don't know right now who's most senior, whether it would be Kluel or DeFow. Director Kluel, would you be willing to sit on that? Okay. We have one additional position that Director Robertson sat on, and this one is a little bit more difficult. This is on the negotiation team. And I don't know that at this point that this is appropriate, because this is a position that Director Robertson got into and onto, and I think he served for several years. It was again, it was kind of a liaison probably to the board in some respects, and yet I'm certain that he had to mostly listen. I don't quite understand that position, and at this point I'm probably not going to make a decision, and so I'm not asking for volunteers, but I would entertain any thoughts or discussion on that position. Seeing none, we'll set that one aside. For now, Director Snyder and Director Sherwood will participate on the Teacher Compensation Committee. Director Kluel will be the representative to the Urban Education Network. Director Sherwood, Director DeFow, Director Johansson will participate on the Policy Committee. Director Kluel, Director Crumwitty, Director Johansson will participate on the Legislative Advocacy Committee, and Director Kluel will participate on the Agenda Committee along with the regular Agenda Committee. At this point, I would ask for a motion to adjourn the organizational meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned. At this point, there's an opportunity to rearrange the seating. I've thought a lot about the seating. But everybody's kind of seated. So the new board members, the board members that have been here before, is there any thought to moving? In fact, I'll tell you, Director Snyder and Director Dickman, I've actually thought about reversing your two seats. But maybe it isn't that important. Director DeFow.
I'm wondering if it's not time for a change of perspective, and I, in fact, would like to switch seats with Director Dickman.
Okay. I'm sure going to give latitude to board members with more tenure, I guess I'll say. Are there any other movements that would like to be made? Okay, with that.
Well, thinking about that, I had never thought of it about a matter of perspective, and I like that idea, because I was just reading how important it is, and I was talking earlier about how important it is sometimes to talk things out. When you talk things out, sometimes you come up with conclusions that you wouldn't get if you just thought it through your head. And so I think this idea of a different perspective, I I like that idea. So I guess I'd like to move into Jamie Snyder's spot. Let's see what things look like from the left side of the board.
All right, and I'm going to allow that as well. Are there any other requests or discussion on this matter? Okay, great. We'll take a, since it's 9 o'clock, and I'd like to finish this up, we'll just take a 2-minute recess. Everybody got a recess earlier. Go ahead and make your switch and have a new perspective. All right, for our last meeting, I called this regular meeting of the Davenport Community School District Board of Directors to order. We have we have some other items requiring action. May I have a motion regarding the superintendent contract?
Mr. President,
Director DeFau.
I move the board approve the superintendent's contract as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Call for the vote. Director DeFau?
Yes.
Director Crumwitty?
Yes.
Director Kluhl?
Yes.
Director Snyder?
Yes.
Director Sherwood?
Yes.
Director Dickman?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion regarding math improvement contract?
President Johansson,
Director Dickman?
I move that we approve the math improvement contract.
If you'd go ahead and read
Oh, okay.
read what's there as a and what you would normally do is say that you move that we accept the administration's recommendation that, and then read the rest of that.
I move that we accept the administration's recommendation that the board approve a contract from Scholastic Achievement Partners for professional development for 2 days for up to 200 K-5 teachers in the amount of $54,700.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Not. Call for the vote. Director Dickman?
Yes.
Director Kluhl?
Yes.
Director DeFau?
Yes.
Director Snyder?
Yes.
Director Sherwood?
Yes.
Director Crumwitty?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding legislative priority for the 2013 Legislative Assembly?
Mr. President.
Director Kluhl.
The Legislative Advocacy Committee recommends that the board approve the following as its legislative priority to be submitted to the Urban Education Network not later than October 1st, 2013. Early childhood literacy, that is pre-K through 2, is a doorway through which children must be successful to succeed academically. We believe that focused legislative efforts must be directed to funding increased teaching staff at these grade levels, expanding the focus of class size reduction to the pre-kindergarten level, and related legislative efforts to assure education reform in Iowa is meaningful.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion?
Mr. President,
Director Sherwood.
I just want to salute the Legislative Advocacy Committee. This is undoubtedly, as Larry has said, our most important priority in the state. And even though there's been a lot of lip service to how important this is in the state, we saw no increase in funding last year in early childhood. And in fact, when we were hit by the sequestration, we saw no movement to backfill the holes that were created by that lack of funding. So talk is cheap. The legislature needs to get off its rear end and fully fund these initiatives so that we can make the maximum impact at that age. Thank you.
Any additional discussion? Director Crumity.
I'm wondering if Director Kluhl could talk a little bit about where this goes next and why we're doing this as a school board and what impact it may make statewide and especially within the Urban Education Network.
Well, the board has an excellent legislative advocacy committee, a group of people who get together regularly and talk about where it is that we need to go in terms of supporting our students and our staff. At our most recent meeting, we were asked by the Agenda Committee to put together a proposed priority or priorities for the school board to send forward to the Urban Education Network. The Urban Education Network is a group of the 8 largest school districts in the state, and plus some additional school districts that have been put on that are close to being the largest. And the reason that we did that with, we had this Urban Education Network is because typically Iowa is still somewhat of an agricultural state, and so there are a lot of issues that those smaller districts don't have that larger districts have. So we joined together with this urban district to try to make sure that our issues came before the legislature adequately. So what we did is we said, look, you know, we've worked these legislative priorities for a number of years, and we usually come up with some of the most important issues, which are allowable growth, which is now, I think, called state provisions for additional funding. We ask for things like trying to make sure that the funding that we get from the legislature is equitable across the state, which currently it is not, and we will continue to work on that. We have districts like Bettendorf and Pleasant Valley that receive more funding per student than we do here in Davenport, and that continues to be a concern. But we said, what do we think we can really get accomplished this year? What can we really make happen? Because we're tired of sitting in the dust and not getting anywhere with our priorities. So this is one that we felt was very important. We felt that it's key that we be able to make sure that children in the preschool through 2nd grade have the ability to read and comprehend the language. Because that, we believe, and the data backs us up, is essential. It's actually, as I said, the doorway to academic success and a future as a citizen in the United States. Very crucial. And right now, we don't have the funding to staff our preschools and for kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade classes with the number of teachers that are needed to adequately provide the intensity of literacy instruction that they need. So we believe that that will supplement the governor's program on education reform. If we can get in there and affect the early childhood experiences of these young children in our school district, we believe we'll make a difference. We believe it's very important. So what we did is we have gone out and sent this information to the other Urban Education Network districts ahead of time, hoping that they too will consider the importance of this priority that we've come up with and join with us in supporting that at the Urban Education Network. And to date, Waterloo has come on board and said that they, in fact, believe that this is a priority that they will probably make number 1 as well. So it's a grassroots organization effort to try to make sure that we put our funding where we're going to get the most results. And we believe that this particular priority has legs. We're going to work with the Urban Education Network and the Iowa Association of School Boards and the Urban 8 districts to make sure that it does. And I do appreciate Senator Robbie Smith being here tonight, and glad that he stayed through to hear this little soapbox presentation of mine. And I know that he appreciates the need for funding and education and support, and we hope to have him come and visit with us very soon on the Legislative Advocacy Committee.
Additional discussion. I want to say a few things. Of course, I think that the Legislative Advocacy Committee is incredibly powerful and unique in this state. There was a question earlier about another district, and I think that a lot of districts have the superintendent primarily pursue the legislative advocacy, and that it doesn't allow the board and the community really to participate maybe in the same way that we do. This committee, I don't even know how old it is, but I remember the first year that I participated in the school board, I thought that this had to be the place for me. I think that, and at the time, the only person on that committee, I think, was Director Kluhl. And the committee has grown up to be a really interesting and, as I mentioned earlier, I think a powerful group. And this particular statement, as a legislative priority, when we think about what's going on and when you see what's happening out in the urban education network, and those of you that have been on this board before, you know that what we have done is we have a list of priorities and we pick from them and then we submit them. And I think, as Director Kluhl mentioned, we really haven't probably attained much. This particular legislative advocacy statement, and it being the only one, allows us to focus a lot. It allows us, and it allows student board members, and it allows the community to participate with that single-mindedness as we talk to our legislators. And as Director Kluhl mentioned, we have Senator Robbie Smith in the audience, and I would encourage all of you to engage with him if he sticks around after the meeting. But it's always good to meet people like that, and we appreciate their participation in our activities as well. Is there any other discussion? Not, I'll call for the vote. Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Sherwood, I'm sorry, Crumwoody.
Yes.
Director Dickman.
Yes.
Director DeFow.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding policy review?
Mr. President,
Director DeFow.
I move that the board accept and approve the policy committee's recommendation for the following policies as previously discussed at the September 9th, 2013 regular board meeting. 305.01 School Food Service Program, 501.12 Boundary Lines, and 501.15 Attendance.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Call for the vote. Director DeFow.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director Crumwoody.
Yes.
Director Dickman.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Move on to discussion of policy. Director DeFow.
There was a packet with a variety of policies for your review. We bring them forward for discussion tonight. I'll just run through them one by one, and if anybody has comments, then we can proceed accordingly. 502.13, bomb threats. And there were no recommended changes by the administration. However, I do note that the policy committee had asked about what type of bomb threat training is provided, and I don't know that we got an answer to that question. So this may be one that we can discuss, but the policy committee may in fact bring back some modification to that or some clarification to that. So, comments? Okay, next policy 103.16, community relations, specifically related to advertising and the use of commercial support and services. The administration is not recommending any change. Director Kluhl?
Just curious about the first sentence. Collaboration between the public and private sectors is beneficial to both the schools and community. I mean, I understand that to be the case, but what does that have to do with advertising and the use of commercial support and services?
Well, I think it was our practice in the past to have philosophical statements as an introduction to policy. I know that we've also had conversation about omitting those philosophical statements unless they were specifically relevant to the policy at hand. So I take it that you're suggesting that that statement may be omitted?
To me, I would appreciate it. It seems to me like it's almost starting out as an excuse. Well, you know, we like collaboration between the public and private sectors, but you know, the board recognized it. It doesn't seem appropriate to me. It may be philosophical, but I think shorter is better. I think if we can be succinct and take out this philosophical part, if that's what it is, it would make the board policy more clear.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any comments relevant to this policy?
I also felt that the first sentence would be better omitted from the policy. Also, in the bullet point around the bottom, it is judged to be in the best interest of students. I was curious if it's who it's being judged by, if we wanted to clarify that.
Well, it would be the administration that would be engaged in the agreements with different groups that would like to pursue advertising or directly solicit the school district. So it would be, I would defer to Mr. Schnaden if he would like to clarify that.
The only thing that comes to mind would be something like a drink milk campaign. I could see where the Dairy Association sends out posters and things like that to schools, and that would be judged, I suppose, by administration to be in the best interest of children to advertise the dairy, you know, the dairy.
I just wasn't sure if we wanted to clarify that it was the administration who was going to be making that call in the policy. Wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, we certainly could consider adding that clarifier to the introductory sentence. So we'll take that back to the policy committee for consideration. Any other comments relevant to this policy? Okay. The next one, 401.01, Employment Equity and Non-Discrimination. This was reviewed by Dr. Goldstone. I know that the specific reference to her by name is a requirement. And so even though it generally is not our practice to include specific personnel names, in this case, I believe we do not have a choice. These changes have been made after lengthy conversations about these policies that have gone on for the better part of a year. The next policy, 402.04, which is personnel teachers. Again, the policy committee did make some recommended changes there just to make it a little bit more succinct. Moving on to policy 501.16, open enrollment between districts. This is a policy that we held until we had resolved some other issues that were before us earlier in the year. There was a minor change recommended, and the diversity plan is specifically referenced. I believe capital D, capital P, that was the change for that. So, comments regarding this policy?
Could you explain the category A and category B? I was a little confused by that, I guess.
It may be a lengthier conversation than we want to have at this time.
Good question. Good question.
Yeah, and it is.
Or if there's a sub-policy, I could
It's not necessarily clearly defined in in this, but there is a diversity plan that the district has approved, or the board has approved, that guides us in open enrollment decisions, and that plan is actually an administrative regulation to this policy. And Category A and Category B describe student groups based upon, as referenced in this policy, either their student academic performance and their free and reduced lunch eligibility. So depending upon where you fall with those two criteria, you are either a Category A or a Category B student. Then that's the ratio we use to determine balance within our buildings and within our school district. And we use that formula or equation to determine whether or not students are allowed to open enroll out of district.
Thank you.
Is that a fair?
Yeah, and I suggest, if Mary, if you would provide to Maria the definitions. This goes much bigger than just the out-of-district enrollment, too. It also describes certain schools inside of our district. So Mary can supply you with those definitions, and it takes a while to read over, and you'll get all that stuff down, but it's a little bit of a study.
Thank you.
Director DeFaul? I think that Director Sherwood's last comment is very appropriate, but I think we need to go a little bit further than that. I think because that has been pretty controversial since I've been on this board, I think it would be helpful for someone in administration perhaps to walk our new board members through this so you understand what it's all about, because it was pretty complicated when we as board members came up with this policy in the first place. So I think that would be helpful.
I was going to make that suggestion as well, that perhaps after review that someone from the administration, whether it be Dr. Tate or Mr. Snaden or Mr. Scott, could make themselves available to provide more information. Any other comments relevant to this policy? Director Kluhl.
And just a note to new board members, too, that we delayed a conversation on the diversity plan recently, and so the whole issue will be coming up again, and by that time, it will be good if you've had that background update on this, because the issue that I suggested that we talk about is the criteria on which we determine open enrollment, that being free and reduced lunch, and performance on student academic standardized tests. Two criteria which I would like the board to have a discussion about, so that'll be coming up in the near future.
Anything else? Okay, moving on to 401.41, personnel communicable diseases, employees. And there were no recommended changes to this policy. And then lastly, 401.23, private use of public property. This has been reviewed with no changes recommended. And actually, I think if you turn the page, there's one other policy, 602.04, special federal, state, or privately financed programs. And after a couple of conversations and some time spent with both Rachel Mullins and Kendall Owa, we have decided to recommend deletion of this policy, but would like to ask for an annual report on grant awards. We didn't think the policy was really clear as to what it legislated versus what the intent of it was. So that's our recommendation, is deletion.
Student school board members, it's been kind of a long, dry night here with not a lot of stuff that really was germane to you. This might be one section of the agenda that you might have had some thoughts on in terms of policy issues. If not, totally understandable. Well, we certainly will try to engage you in our meetings as much as possible, but tonight may not have been that night.
Is that it?
That concludes policy review.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on. Are there any administrative reports? Okay. Are there any board reports or requests?
Mr. President.
Director Sherwood.
Two things. First of all, I've been getting a lot of phone calls from bus drivers in the district, and they have lots of concerns, but the ones that I think directly the board should be interested in is that there are a lot of accusations that they are at times forced to engage in what they consider unsafe practices of driving, continuing to drive the buses, directed to them by their dispatchers to continue to drive buses when there are disruptions on the buses that they feel they should be stopped, the buses should be stopped, and that students are out of control. Sometimes with students with AIDS are overwhelming AIDS, and so the bus driver has to assist in restraining students, and a lot of issues there. They've been working without a contract since, I believe, June. They and the board should be aware of this. Unlike regular school employees, these employees do have the right to strike, and if they took it to that stage, they could become a serious disruption to the functioning of the district. There's also what I would consider a lot of poor practice on the part of this this company that we have outsourced our bus driving to, and so here's what I'd like to know is I would like to get some response from the administration as far as how we monitor the performance of this company. I've also had a number of complaints from people in our early childhood program that since this organization took over transportation for our early childhood students from Riverbend, that the quality has declined dramatically as far as interactions with our kids and the quality of service. So I want to know how we're monitoring these things, how we know that our kids are safe. I also am aware that in a number of districts, bus drivers are trained as far as the special medical needs of the students they're transporting, and given information on that so they can react properly if students are in distress. We don't do that, and I want to know why we don't do that and what it would take to get that done. Teachers are informed of that when a kid comes into your classroom, has special medical needs, you're informed of that and what you should look for and so forth. I think the same thing should apply to bus drivers. So I'd like some information about the safety of our students, the appropriateness of the directions being given to these bus drivers. We have cameras, we have lots of things. Do we monitor these things? And so that's a major issue for me. Second thing is that we have the diversity committee and had come up with a plan which we talked about at length the last time we got together about how we could develop talent inside the district to become teachers, specifically that minority aides would be encouraged and supported in pursuing an education degree and then come into our classrooms. Part of that expectation is that we have aides already who have 2A degrees, and so they have a little bit of a head start on the process and would help us. Well, it's been brought to my attention that we had, as of 4 or 5 years ago, we had something like 22, 25 positions in the district that were aide positions that asked for a 2A degree, so that aides, in fact, were encouraged to get that 2A degree, and they were rewarded by a little extra money, a little higher demand on their talents, but that has been reduced almost to zero as far as these positions in the district. So if that is correct, then we are being counterproductive to what we want to accomplish as far as getting this cadre of employees ready to try to develop into classroom teachers. We're shooting ourselves in the foot. So I have a request here that I'd like a report on those 2A positions and the trending that has occurred there in the last 5 years. So that's my two things. Thanks.
Thank you. Any additional reports or requests? I have a couple. This past week, all of a sudden, we were getting reports and requests for direction regarding dogs in the school. There was a parent that thought it was his right to bring a dog into the school when he was going to get his student. And then once we started realizing that was happening, there were some additional reports of dogs being brought into the stadium, even when other types of activities besides Davenport District functions are being performed there. There was another request for looking at a policy for students having service dogs that have a peanut allergy. And this is a very real request. And don't think it's just limited to dogs. There was another observation that at one of the sign-ups for something or other, one lady brought in a hooded gecko or a bearded gecko or something that had to be about 3 foot long and that was draped across her chest. There's a little bit of a sense of urgency, and I have asked the policy committee to at least start considering this. The reason for the sense of urgency is that without a policy on this, some of these people, as I mentioned, they feel they have the right to do these things, and it could be dangerous. There may be other things. I wanted to mention this past weekend, the NAACP had a function on Saturday night, and there were some of us that were going to and that did attend. Director Kluhl was planning on being there, and an emergency prevented him from being able to attend. Director Sherwood and his wife attended. Our school board secretary, Mary, and her husband. In fact, did I say your wife, Director Sherwood? Okay, good. I thought I might have said husband. And I wouldn't have intended that. But anyway, our school board secretary, Mary, and her husband attended, and I attended. And I just wanted to say that this was quite an event. There were a lot of good things going on, and I think that they had a speaker there, Cameron Middlebrooks, and he was an example of leadership. He happens to represent a big portion of the United States relative to the NAACP, and he gave an inspirational speech that covered a lot of thought, but one of the key thoughts that was incorporated in there was we need to get young people into leadership positions. And I think that's something our board has thought, and we tried, and we appreciate you student board members for participating in these leadership activities. And I know that you participate in other activities besides just this, certainly. But this is an example of the type of leadership activity that students can get involved in. Anyway, it was a great speech, and I think that there are opportunities, additional opportunities for our board and for our community to work with the NAACP. I think they're doing some fine work. I just wanted to mention that. Are there any other reports or requests? Director Sherwood.
Thank you. You stirred my memory. Next Saturday night at 7 o'clock at the Unitarian Church, there's going to be the presentation of an original documentary film that was done in Southern California. Those filmmakers are going to be here to screen their film. It's on public education. I've seen the film. It's very, very interesting as far as its capture of a large urban district and the complexity of what happens in schools and the quality of instruction that go on in schools. So that'll be shown at 7 o'clock, and after the film there'll be a panel discussion which will include on the panel Dr. Tate, our illustrious president, Ralph Johansson, Tom Carpenter, who is the head of St. Ambrose Department of Education, Mike Schroeder, who's with Augustana's Department of Education, Toby Pion, who's the director of the of ISCA's Serve Unit, and Rebecca Menard, who will represent the DEA, and Cindy Winkler will all be on that panel. So if you have an interest in a conversation about public education that doesn't look like some of the hatchet jobs we've seen, like Waiting for Superman, please come and take a look.
Okay, anything else? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. This meeting is adjourned.